Tesla is working on and possibly even already producing the newest version of the Model 3, which has quite a few changes over the previous version. Now, Tesla doesn't like to attach years to their cars because that's not how they update them. If they fix something on the car, they just update it as soon as they can on the assembly line. So anytime in the middle of the year, they could change something and your car could have a different feature from someone who bought a month or two ago. It's great for customers because you always know you're getting the best possible Model 3 when you buy a new one, but it's a little unfortunate for some customers because it's nice to at least have a year until you see a massive upgrade. So I made a video a few weeks ago called Don't Buy a Tesla Model 3 in 2020. And my arguments were waiting to hear what they announce on battery day, the new heat pump on the Model Y that they're probably putting on the Model 3, and the fact that Tesla should be releasing the rear-wheel drive Model Y, which will be a great deal. I got a lot of comments on that video complaining about the Osborne effect, which is essentially the idea that you're not buying the current version of a product because you're waiting for the next better one. Companies have to work on avoiding this because if you promise some new technology in 2 years that's going to be vastly better than what you currently have, you would want to wait for that one, but at the same time, they need you to buy the current one. So I got a lot of comments saying like, well, if that's your advice, just never buy a Model 3 because it's always going to be updating. And that wasn't the point of that video. The point is that this time, and it applies even further now that we're getting more details about this updated Model 3, you should wait for the 2021 Model 3. Now, technically, it might not even be listed as the 2021 Model 3, depending on when it comes out and when companies like to actually list the car as 2021 versus 2020. But there will be a number of changes coming to the Model 3 all at once that you're most likely going to want. So the first one is the thing people are focusing on the most, and that is the updated center console. Now, since launch, the center console on the Model 3 has been piano gloss black, and most people complain that it's the worst because it has lots of glare, it's a fingerprint magnet, and that was my exact experience on the Model Y, which led to me wrapping it, and most people end up wrapping that. Also, when it was initially announced, it was designed for smartphone docking, but not wireless charging, and then they have since added the wireless charger, actually just within the last few months on the Model 3. But now it looks like this updated design is taking a little inspiration from the Model S. It's actually going to have this drawer that slides, thanks to this photo that was released by @JSTesla on Twitter. And you can see it looks like there's just an opening for where the wireless charger goes as opposed to having something that closes over it. Now, I actually kind of enjoy being able to close a panel over my phone so that if it lights up with a notification, I don't see it out of the corner of my eye. So I would miss that if that is gone on the Model 3, but we'll see what ends up happening. So this new design is quite a bit different. It definitely looks a lot different than the Model 3 has in the past, and I actually think it looks really nice. I think it has kind of a modern look. It looks a little more premium than the previous center console on the Model 3 and the Model Y, but there have been a lot of people complaining that it looks old and outdated. So whatever you think, let me know in the comments below. In any case, everyone is focusing on this center console being in the Model 3 and updating there, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see it in the Model Y even just a month or two after it gets changed in the Model 3. We saw that exact same thing happen with the Model Y. It came with all USB-C ports, and then a few months later, they added those USB-C ports to the Model 3. Looks like the same thing might happen. New center console in the Model 3, few months later in the Model Y. Although it is possible they do it at the same time, which will be interesting to see. So that's the center console, and this has been spotted in person, so we know it's actually true, and they're actually making it already at Fremont. Then the next change is that they're switching to matte black trim all around the car, like is on the Model Y. From launch, the Model 3 has had chrome trim all around the car, and a lot of people end up doing a whole chrome delete process, which is pretty intensive because there's a lot of places where there's chrome around the car, and a lot of people just wanted to get rid of it, so they did. And then when Tesla released the Model Y, that came with all matte black trim, or you could call it chrome delete, but there was never chrome there in the first place, so people complain if you call it chrome delete. So it's going to be matte black on the Model 3 as well. I personally like this look a lot better. Some people really enjoy the chrome on the Model 3, but I personally think the black looks way better just across the board with all their colors, and you're going to never have glare off of the bottom of the mirrors like I've experienced before. The third change that has been confirmed by Electrek is that there's going to be a powered liftgate trunk. Now, this has been a complaint of people since the beginning of the Model 3. They were disappointed that the trunk was actually manual. Well, the Model S and X both have powered liftgates, and then when the Model Y came out, that had a powered liftgate because it is a hatchback. And it wouldn't really make sense to have that car without a powered liftgate. Although if they did it, I'm sure people would have bought it anyway. So they're officially adding the powered liftgate to the Model 3, which is a big upgrade because in the past, if you bought a Model 3 and you wanted a powered liftgate, you'd have to go with some third-party solution, and that could cost a few $100. Those three upgrades have basically just been things that people have changed as soon as they got their Model 3s in the past. They would get their Model 3, wrap the interior to get rid of that awful gloss on the center console, and then wrap the chrome all around the car. And then many people would go in and add a powered liftgate on their own, since it's much easier to have that, and if you forget to close it, you touch a button and it closes for you. But the fourth upgrade we're expecting hasn't been confirmed, but we're really expecting it based on the evidence, and that's the heat pump. In the Model Y, Tesla added this new heat pump and octavalve system that is supposed to be revolutionary and really improves efficiency while heating the interior of the car. In colder climates for the Model 3, it tends to lose a lot more range than you would expect, and with the Model Y, they've improved that with this heat pump, so we're expecting them to add that to the Model 3 as well. Elon has talked about how important this heat pump is, so we've really just been expecting it on that level. But on top of that, they did shrink the size of the frunk in the Model 3, seemingly allowing room for something in the front there, which definitely would make sense to be the heat pump, because otherwise there would really be no reason to shrink that frunk. So unless you're adamantly against the matte black trim, or you're adamantly against the new center console design, and you really don't want a powered liftgate, you should wait at least like a week or two to see what is going on with this Model 3. People have driven by Tesla's Fremont factory and noticed a lot of Model 3s with this matte black trim, so it looks like it will be coming really soon. But it's funny how Tesla operates this way. They don't say anything. People kind of figure out these little clues, or they spot something, and then suddenly they buy a Model 3 and it has this new feature. So I guess on a small scale, it is kind of the Osborne effect, but it seems like it's just going to be a couple weeks of waiting, and then you'll get a bunch of great features on the Model 3 that we've seen with evidence and photos, and people have seen it at the Fremont factory. Now, of course, take this all with a grain of salt, because it's possible these are just things Tesla is testing, and they've produced a couple at the Fremont factory, and that'll be it, and they'll change their minds. But it is also possible that in a couple weeks, we're going to see this Model 3 with all of these great new features, and people are going to be very happy about it. I know that if I were in the market for a Model 3 right now, I would be waiting, and I would be happy that I waited if they really add all these features. But since Tesla is always updating the Model 3, when do you stop? When do you actually buy it? When do you stop waiting? Well, in this case, as I described, it seems like we're a few weeks away from those upgrades, but I had talked previously about Battery Day. Well, Tesla gave us a lot of awesome announcements at Battery Day, including the fact that they're going to make a $25,000 car within 3 years. Now, that is Elon time, and I know the Model Y was early, but this would be a new car using new battery tech, and it would have to get to that lower price point, so I'm expecting it to take a bit longer than that. But they talked about their new 4680 cells and how they're going to be building those at their Giga Texas factory and everything, and we got recent confirmation that the first car to get these cells is going to be the Model Y built in Berlin. So it looks like we're probably a few years off, maybe 2 or 3, until we see this new battery technology actually show up in the Model 3 and improve it. I wouldn't be surprised if in 5 years or so we have a Model 3 that gets 400 miles of range and is around the price point that it's at today, or even lower. But if you want a Model 3, you want a Model 3 much sooner than 5 years. So I don't think waiting that long really makes sense, because you're going to get 5 full years out of that car before the new one comes out and maybe is much more compelling. As I mentioned earlier, Tesla upgrades these things at any time and doesn't really tell anyone. And that is most likely them actively working against the Osborne effect. Because if they announce that this new center console design is coming in 2 months, they're going to have a lot of orders that are just going to be waiting for 2 months when they need to be making sales. But it is pretty interesting to see that they're bundling them all together at this point. I mean, if you get in the new 2021 Model 3, it should look quite a bit different. You'll walk up to it, see the matte black trim, you'll get in, you'll see the new center console, and then you'll actually click a button to open the trunk. I think they're exciting upgrades and all things that people have wanted since the beginning, so it's exciting to see them actually adding these. But what do you think about these upgrades? And if you were going to buy a Model 3 today, would you wait a couple weeks to see what happens? Let me know in the comments below. And as I mentioned before, 3 of those 4 upgrades are all things that are present in the Model Y, so it makes a lot of sense that they're now putting them on the Model 3. The one change I'll be curious to see if they change on the Model Y will be that center console. Since that car has been out for less than a year, it does feel weird that they would do such a big design change for the whole center console, but it also makes a ton of sense for how Tesla does things. They don't care that it hasn't been a year, they just change it so that their customers going forward from when they start producing that are more happy. But that's all the news about the Model 3 refresh, and I'll let you know as soon as we see that officially coming from Tesla. In the meantime, make sure you subscribe to this channel for lots more videos like this about Tesla and the Model Y. Make sure to like this video if you appreciated it. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at RyanShawTech. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.